I am Centimus Prime, and here I will be reviewing the Transformers Studio Series 86 Deluxe Class Bumblebee. So starting off, we will be taking a look at the figure himself, and what better place to start than that head sculpt. And I'll getting a closer look at that head sculpt. Not looking too bad. Do get some soft panel lining details around the helmets. Got the horns and stuff. Details that are expected from a G1 Bumblebee, G1 style Bumblebee. And of course, the face is painted up in this silver, as well as the blue eyes. Though I will say, in my opinion, I'm not too big on the expression that B has on his face for this figure. To me it just feels like he's a little too pouty. I think. No, it's a very boring expression on a Bumblebee, which is, I don't know. To me it looks boring. It looks like boring. It's just that it feels, it feels unexpressive and stuff. Not saying the details bad. It's just a boring expression on his face to me. I definitely would have preferred if they had gave him a little bit of a smile, or a little bit of a smile, a little bit of a grin, just a little bit of an expression on his face. But aside from that, his head's not looking too bad. So moving down to the chest, and moving down to the chest. I do kind of like the look of this chest. Even though that his chest, from this angle, does stick out a bit farther than I'd like. It doesn't even look that bad from most angles, and does look very faithful to how a G1 Bumblebee looks, especially from the front. It's that sort of a mind trick thing that his chest is going for, where it does kind of look like it's sticking out a wee bit too far from most angles. Not by a terrible margin, but it does feel noticeable to me. However, by looking at it from this front angle, it almost looks perfect. Really interesting. Sort of interesting. And I'm not even terribly bothered by this. The only really negative thing I have to say about it is the color matching for the paints on the sides here. I feel like that could have been color matched a little better. But aside from that, the chest not looking too bad. And the fact that the windshield, parts of his chest are done in this opaque plastic rather than a translucent plastic was a pleasant surprise. and of course the Autobot logo, front and center, looking good. Looks very nice. Looks very nice. And so, moving on to the side of the figure, and I'm gonna move the arms forward a little bit to give you a look at this. And yes, from the side the side of his torso is looking quite chunky, but it's not looking terrible. Of course, we do get some panel lining details on the sides. Same goes for this side. There's a little bit of like hinge work and stuff down here, but it's not too bad. And we even get a look at Bumblebee. And looking at Bumblebee from the back, we do get a look at and we do get to see a look at Bumblebee with his with the rear of his, with what's going to become the back end of his car. Like nicely, it's like nicely, it's not looking too bad. Like the way that this part folds into the back somewhat neatly, and reasonably solid, and nice and solid. Definitely not the worst I've seen with a Ghibli back. Definitely not the worst Ghibli backpack I've seen on a figure. And most definitely not the worst Ghibli backpack I've seen on a Bumblebee figure. Not looking too bad. And I'll get into how this is connected a little more later during the transformation stuff. But for now, it's not looking too bad. It's there, and it's not looking bad. But moving on to the arms. The arms I do personally like the look of. Despite the elbow here not looking quite as accurate to the cartoon, for most, just like the chest, once again, from most angles, it's not even that, doesn't even look that bad. It is surprisingly, it is surprisingly not looking too bad. These are quite simple little arms for Bumblebee, but they're doing a pretty good job just being little arms. The shoulders are nice. It's just your nice, simple, little blocky arms. The shoulders are done nicely. The upper arms the biceps have been done nicely. Very accurate to how it traditionally looks. The yellow forearms look nice, and the hands do look nicely sculpted as well. Mentioning the coloring again. Once again, we do get to see some different shades of yellow, but the difference between the plastic used for the arms and the pelvic region and the yellow plastic down here at the feet is significantly less noticeable than the paint used here. So there is that. Moving down to the legs. Legs are very slimmed down, they look yeah, they look very thinned down, uh, very significantly thinner and shorter, even compared to that of the Earthrise Cliff Jumper mold. But do still pack in some nice panel linings and details and stuff like that. Not looking too bad. And then we moved down to his like Volkswagen-esque like stompers. And looking at this, like when I first saw like reveals for this figure, I thought these I thought these like feet would be like way out of proportion with the rest of his figure. Not only because of the ankle tilts, but also like because of like how tall his feet are compared to his legs. But in person, it's not look like. But I am glad to say that in person, I'm not noticing this disproportion nearly as much. Fortunately, I'm not bothered. I'm nowhere near as bothered by it as I thought I was going to be, which is nice. And as for details, it's just what you'd expect from their classic G1 Bumblebees. You know, you got the headlights here, the hood stuff, and the bumper stuff and the wheels here on the side, and all that. And yes, we even get some door panels here on the back, filling up, which do an okay job filling out the backs of this, and as a result, absolutely doesn't make this figure look hollow in the slightest. Looks like a nice little solid figure, which is very nice considering the price he goes for how small he is. He's a nice dense little guy. And then moving to the bottom of his feet, which is quite interesting to me because rather than leaving these feet the way they are and having his feet like just like at the mercy of the wheels, they do like give you some extra parts to give you these these parts to help him stand up more solidly. And once again, not at the mercy of the wheels. And what I mean by that is, with other figures, if you have like Transformers with like wheels like this, and if they happen to have their feet a little too close together, they kind of roll their feet around. They kind of like roll their feet around as if they're standing on a hoverboard of some sort. This Bumblebee doesn't do that, which is fortunate. Which is quite fortunate indeed. Once again, details looking nice. Rear looks good, and even like parts like this, which doesn't make it look the most clean, but it still doesn't look as bad. It still looks reasonably solid. Yeah, it still looks nice and solid. Which is great. Next we'll be talking about the articulation. So starting the articulation segment, his head is on a ball joint, can look left and right, of course, can look down just a little bit, and can look up just a tiny little bit, and does have an ever so slight like head tilt sort of motion. And if you want, I guess you can use one of the transformation hinges to make him look like he's looking down more, which well, from most angles is going to look really awkward and it's like unusable. From some angles, from some like ground up angles like this, where it's trying to look down, it does help you out when trying to helping Bumblebee looking down, like in looking down sort of poses. So that's nice. The arms, the shoulders are on a ball joint, so he can move his arms up like this. And if you untab the shoulders, you can like give that shoulder joint itself a little bit of a little bit of wiggle room. But we're just gonna leave that tapped in. And of course, it's a ball joint, so it's gonna rotate up like this, and it's gonna give you a little bit of extra rotation right here due to the nature of these ball joints. The bicep does do a 360 rotation, so there is that. The elbow can bend up to 90, though I will say, when bending it all the way to 90, when bending the arm, if you try bending it all the way to 90, it does lock into place, and that's due to transformation. But if you don't like that, I guess you could find ways to make it not do that, but I don't mind it. It's not even like that note. It's not even that big of a deal for me. And of course, the wrists can rotate 360. The waist, okay, so, darn it, this got knocked loose. So the waist can rotate 360. It can rotate 360 just fine. It does ever so slightly bump into the backpack, but it's not enough to like knock it out of place. The reason it got knocked out of place was due to like me like haphazardly like finicking with the toy. But yeah, it does have a 360. That is pretty much unlimited rotation, 360 movements, and all that goodness. The legs, so the hips can kick up, so the legs can kick up to that far. They can kick back to about that far. They can, of course, move out to the side. You can get a good split out of that. Does have a good 360 in the thigh joint. Knees can bend 90. Knees can bend 90 in both directions due to transformation. He does have an ankle tilt, though using it is a little awkward due to how high it is. It's like due to how like tall the feet, like car feet are, the ankle tilts are like right on top of that, and it does make the ankle tilt look a bit more awkward. But it's not. But and I thought that was gonna bother me more than like it does right now. But fortunately, it's not looking as bad as I thought it would. And as an addition, and due to transformation, he does have an additional joint in the foot. So he does bend so he can bend his foot down a little bit more, which can be used, which can also be used as like an additional like knee joint, which is cool. Which is really cool. Do enjoy that. Very, very neat. am enjoying this quite a bit. So, in terms of accessories, he of course has the ever so iconic Studio Series backdrop thing. He has the 86 Transformers, the Studio Series 86, 29, and stuff like that. The backdrop is basically identical to that of the Studio Series Hot Rods backdrop thing, as well as like this traditional like red block, like red box like base here that shows what movie this character is from, and you could just have him displayed on this box, on this like backdrop sort of thing, and that's fine and dandy. Just gonna set that aside and all that. He does come with he also comes with a very simple pea shooter weapon, and his little gun, little blaster gun. It does look really neat. It most definitely looks like the gun that Bumblebee traditionally shoots with. It is molded in this black dark gray color that Bumblebee is using, just completely painted silver. But that's fine. It does have this nice silver to it, and there is a nice bit of greebling and details to it, which makes it look interesting. And of course, it can just plug into his hand very easily. In case you're wondering, yes, it is indeed Blast Effect compatible. And I've tried it a couple of times. The back end, even though it looks like it could be, it is not Blast Effect compatible. But it does have not a whole lot of accessories, but hey, I believe like considering the previous figures that we have gotten, the previous accessories we have gotten with the Cliffdropper mold, it does feel nice that we've moved on from we've gotten a Bumblebee that's moved on from that mold, and yes, we got a Bumblebee that doesn't come with that accessory that's only relevant to one character in one episode. Yeah, that launcher is nice, but we don't need an entire arsenal of that one weapon. Not knocking the weapon down. It's still a nice weapon with some cool playability. It's just that we've gotten enough of them. But with that said, the gun the accessory he does have, it's very fitting for the character, and it feels right for the character. Doesn't really need anything else, to be honest. Very nice indeed. And so, moving on to size comparisons. Here he is next to my Sentimus Prime repaint of the Siege Prime mold. So that's how he is sized compared to my Prime. Here he is next to Crosscut, which we already seen a little bit of earlier. So that's how he sizes up compared to a average Deluxe. he's significantly smaller, but he does have a nice bit of density to it, and he's a very iconic Bumblebee, and he's a very iconic character. So of course Hasbro is going to want to get away with selling a figure as small as this for the price of this one. But with that said, he doesn't feel that bad. I'll talk about whether or not he's worth that price point later. But until then, more size comparisons. Here he is, and of course here he is next to the Studio Series Core Class Spike Witwicky as that comparison. He is a bit closer to the Core Class size, but he's obviously way too big for that packaging. And here he is next to the Earthrise Cliff Jumper mold. So moving that aside, and comparing these two side by side, very nice. I'm honestly very glad that they were able to create a whole new figure, for Bumblebee, that is still pretty much the same size as this Cliff Jumper mold. Very nice, and it does honestly help differentiate these two, because may I add that these two aren't supposed to be identical. They're supposed to be slight differences to their molding and stuff like that. They're supposed to be different cars. They're the same size, and they have a similar transformation and stuff in the G1, but they weren't the same, you know? Having these two in separate molds is really nice. And so therefore I ask, is Hasbro going to make a Cliff Jumper out of this mold? I think probably, but to be honest, I honestly still think that this Cliff Jumper is totally fine. And, well, obviously, if I could, I would definitely, switch this one out with that Buzzworthy Cliff Jumper, because that one has, really nice colors. Has, a more accurate color scheme. But, with that said, I honestly do prefer that these two are not sharing the same mold. I do like that that both Cliff Jumper and Bumblebee have their own completely separate molds. As a matter of fact, we call it the Earthrise Cliff Jumper mold because Cliff Jumper was the first this figure was just designed as Cliff Jumper first. For the most, which is really nice, because for the most part, it's usually the other way around. A Bumblebee would get retooled or even repainted into, or even just repainted into the Cliff Jumper. And so the fact that this mold was specifically designed for him is very nice and fitting. He even has that launcher weapon, which makes sense for literally no one else using this mold, but it makes perfect sense. But it's completely fitting for Cliff Jumper. So yeah, despite his faults, I still like this figure a lot, even though there's probably a new one on the way. So setting him aside, and let's get to the transformation. Shall we get started? So starting Bumblebee's transformation, first thing we're going to do is remove the gun, obviously. But after that, the first step we do is we untap this chest panel. We open his chest panel. We utilize that hinge, that transformation hinge from earlier. We just click his head, or just click this joint around. Rotate his head in, fold his head in towards his chest, and close that back up. And so there we have that. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to bend his arms until they lock into place, and then rotate his arms. Back about 90 degrees, like so. After that, we can now start on this part. Let's on this part back here, which can be moved up. And if you want to, and I do want to note when transforming this guy back into robot mode, we do get these tabs that can fold over. Like these fenders that basically click into these fenders. So getting a better look at that. So you do get a good look at that. Because yes, this part does indeed have a place to lock in. And I do also want to note that this panel here is completely like attached to the thing. Is completely attached to Bumblebee. Because a major thing about this figure that people were really talking about this figure about is the fact that this part was built, that the back of this figure was built into the transformation, unlike the Cliff Jumper mold, which just had this back part just removed and basically pretending to be a shield accessory. I personally didn't really care that much about it, but yeah, a lot of people really weren't that big on the parts for me, and were praising the figure for this feature alone. But moving back to the transformation, what we're going to do is we're going to pull this up, just extend this hinge joint out, like so. What we can then do is take this whole section here, untab it, and rotate it around, like so that the wheel is facing outward. We then do the same with the other side, and when both are lined up, we tap the two arms together with that tab, and then we have that connected. What we can then do is then we can move down to the legs. So what we can then do is untab these panels here, swing these doors straight with we then swing the doors out. Then we can flip these foot panels, we can hinge them up and lock them into place. Do the same with the other side. And then we take these gray parts and then we just flip them in. They're also easy enough to flip back out, in case you're wondering. Then what we can do is lock the feet into place. We tap the feet together, and then what we do is bend the knees backwards, because it is a part of the transformation. Then what we do is we then what we can do is we take the whole lower body and just hinge it back like this while tabbing the lower body in like this, locking it into place like so. Then after that, we can just fold the feet into the car mode like so, utilizing that transformation hinge at the foot that I mentioned earlier. Very nice. And quite a satisfying part of this transformation. Then after that, we can just accordion the back in and lock it into place. So these tabs are just going to plug into like these gaps, and then these tabs are going to interlock with this part like so. Yeah, like that. And then after you give everything a good squeeze to make sure everything's locked into place, here you have Bumblebee in his car mode. And I know what you might be thinking. Centimus, what the heck is this vehicle mode? I will tell you. This car mode is going for cartoon accuracy from the show. Yes, even down to the top of the car being more squared off rather than rounded. And something that they've also mentioned with this figure is that they made this figure so they changed up details to make it look close but not exactly a Volkswagen Beetle, because things like that, and reasons like that. So they didn't make it look exactly like a VW, a Volkswagen Beetle. And not entirely sure why they didn't just make it totally accurate, even though they still have the licensing to make more Volkswagen Transformers, considering that they've not only considering the fact that they've re-released that Netflix Bumblebee mold into the retro reissue line, but they've also recently announced a new Bumblebee, which is also using that VW Beetle license. I guess they did this to I think it's basically just an excuse for them to later release a version of this Bumblebee with a more VW with a more Volkswagen a vehicle mode that's more accurate to Volkswagen later on down the pipeline. But with that said, I still do like the look of this. I still do like the look of this vehicle mode. It looks nice. And yeah, here we get a look at the bottom of the car. Not looking too bad. It's we don't get a head sticking out anywhere. We do get the obvious arms, but for the most part, it's not looking terrible. And with this, and with Bumblebee now transformed into his car mode, we do get some extra details that are now shown through, like a whole nether Autobot symbol on the hood, which was hidden in the which was cleverly hidden in the robot mode. That's nice. Do like that. Though with the Autobot symbol that's already up here on the roof, the fact that this is here does feel a tad bit unnecessary, but it's still a nice inclusion regardless. Doesn't look that bad at all. From the side, do get some like weird oddities with the color matching, but aside from that, it's looking pretty good. We do get a good look at the side. The wheels look really nice. I do like how the wheels look. That's cool. The windows, not in opaque plastic and painted, are painted up and done up in this opaque plastic. Very nice. Does look really nice. And some people have like nitpicked at the fact that these windows aren't blue. I personally don't mind it. I think it looks a little bit more like the G1 toy. And if you want them blue, if you want the windows blue, there's always toy hacks and possibly even painting the thing yourself. But aside from that, these windows aren't looking bad. They even got the back windows. Even got the back windows. That is very nice. And we also get like the side mirrors and stuff like that. Door handles sculpted in. Really nice. And even in the back, we get painted taillights in the back. We got nice squared off bumpers. And yeah, we can get painted taillights. A lot of modern figures these days have these taillight details sculpted in, but not painted. And that's not with all of them, but that is with a good portion. But it is the case with a good portion of them. And it's simple taillight details, but I do appreciate that they at least put some paint back there to let you know that there's taillights there. Really nice. And something that I found out about this figure, that like this figure in his car mode is pretty much the same size as the vehicle mode for the MP45 Bumblebee 2.0, which is a very infamous figure. But his car mode does look really nice. And aside from like that Bumblebee being ever so slightly longer and probably ever so slightly wider and taller, they're just about this. I think they're just about the same size, which is quite interesting because this is a chug like little like generations style Bumblebee while that one is an MP scale one, which can transform up and to become about the size as a Deluxe Class, like a Deluxe Class, well, an average Deluxe Class like Crosskit here, which is quite interesting to me. And as far as rolling goes, he rolls really nicely. This is really cool. Because all of his wheels are pinned in and are fitted in and pinned in really nicely, his wheels just carry him all the way through. He just carries him. It's really fun to roll this guy around. And moving on to his gun accessory, there is a tab on that's molded on the side of his gun, which can easily just plug into the back right here, like this. Yeah. Which is like, at least it's a place to like plug it in. However, what many people have found out about this figure is in the back there's actually just enough room back here where you can fit this gun into this back gap back here. And if you find a way to like fit it in right, you can just lock this in. You can like lock that into place and have it so that his gun is like, and you can have it so his gun stores in the back of his car mode like a trunk. This Bumblebee has a trunk. By technicality, this Bumblebee figure has a functioning trunk that you can actually store stuff inside. That is really cool to me. Like, you can actually like fit things inside this trunk. So you don't even have to plug the gun in back here. Though I have found that there is a benefit to plugging his gun back here like this, in order to provide a spot to rest. In order to provide a spot to place one of the most iconic gimmicks to the toy that Bumblebee is based off of, that the original Bumblebee was based off of. A penny. Yes, in true penny racer fashion, you can rest a penny on the back of his car mode, and have him like drive around and do wheelies like that. Or of course you can just store the penny, and likely more pennies, inside the back of his car, inside like his little trunk. Really nice. Really nice. The fact that this figure has a trunk is like really neat. And of course, moving on to size comparisons, here he is next to Skids. Here we get a good size comparison with that. Here he is next to Cliff Jumper. And in the vehicle modes, they do kind of clash, with Cliff Jumper here going for a more realistic like car mode, and as for Bumblebee, he's going for a more like chibi, like penny racer like proportions. Though it's not looking too bad. There are they do look like they're from completely different universes, but they do at least look nice together. And as for a Bumblebee comparison, here he is next to like this little Bumblebee movie Bumblebee thing that can transform into like a Hot Wheel sized Bumblebee. Which I do not have the Netflix Bumblebee or any Bumblebee with that VW like Volkswagen Beetle like car mode. But I do have this at least, and it does look more like looks more like a realist. Does look more realistic, which do have those more realistic proportions that you would expect from a VW Beetle. So, like, if you're wondering, like, what this guy looks like next to that mold, that retool, just imagine, just imagine, like, the car this size, but with, so just imagine the car this size, but just looks like, a VW. So, basically, like that. Basically like that. And so, comes to the final part of this video. So, we're closing in on the end of this video, and I will tell you my final thoughts on this figure. This figure, for lack of better terms, blew my expectations because I wasn't expecting this figure to be as good as it is. And in many ways, this figure reminds me of that MP45, like Bumblebee 2.0 figure, which again is a really infamous figure and which gets a whole lot of things wrong. And this figure does have a lot of those similarities. But the thing is, I really like how this figure is. Like, in his robot mode, his car mode looks really nice. His robot mode looks really nice. Does look really... This Bumblebee in his robot mode, unlike that MP45 where he looked really nice from one angle, but looked really incomplete and really finicky and really panely from literally every other angle from then the dead front. This figure still looks nice from every other angle, but looking at him from the dead front, especially looking at him from like front angles, like even the dead front, he looked pretty much just like Bumblebee. He looked just like how I'd want a Bumblebee to look like. Like his robot mode is really great. Though I would prefer if they would, give him a different facial expression. But aside from that, his robot mode was really, really good. His transformation is fun. I find myself flipping through Bumblebee's transformation, both back and forth. It's a nice, fun transformation with some nice cleverness to it. And while I didn't really mind the parts forming thing, the fact that they've went back and found a way to integrate the whole car mode into here is still really nice. And then his car mode, despite his car mode despite what people might think about it, like this car mode, it still really nice, and I still find myself really gravitating towards this figure's car mode because it's such an interesting little car. Because it's really nice. It's a nice chibi little, like, squished down, nice and compact little vehicle with wheels that roll like a dream, and even a trunk, which is impressive. And it also looks very solid, even looking at the windows. The windows aren't translucent, and as a result, makes the vehicle mode look more solid. And the like unintentional like trunk like sort of thing is really cool. I do enjoy that. And the details of the way that this vehicle mode is designed, it's like, it doesn't look exactly like it, but it still looks close enough to make me think yes. This is a really nice this is a really nice Bumblebee, like G1 Bumblebee, like car mode. Very nice indeed. Easily like a great. I absolutely enjoy this Bumblebee. Robot mode is really nice, though I would like a different face. Would like them to change. Though I would have preferred a different face, but the robot mode is really nice. Really good. Transformation is fun and interesting, and the car mode, for lack of a better term, this car mode is basically a masterpiece. Even more so than the MP45, because whereas that one where it had a car mode that is a lot like this one, the transformations for that one doesn't look fun, and it's not even like the robot mode doesn't even look good. And to be honest, I don't collect MP scale figures, so I'm not even gonna bother with that. But the fact that this figure can accomplish so much more than that figure for a fraction of that price, really nice and very much appreciated. And with that, that'll be it for this video. If you enjoyed this review, consider to like and subscribe, and maybe even comment if you want. And of course, I will be posting again sooner or later.